Hey guys, welcome in. I can't believe it. It is Tuesday, November the 12th, 2019. It's another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show brought to you by our friends at wagertalk.com. And who better to talk college hoops with than the man to my right, left? I'll eventually figure out if this thing's inverted or not. It is Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV, of course, is where you can hit up on Twitter. I would suggest you do that, because what he's about to tell you and more will be available, of course, always on his Twitter page at Cal Sports LV. And Ralph, we usually, it's a packed night. First of all, 61 games on the card here tonight. It is loaded for college hoops, and we usually like to start off with a little trend and angle, a little T&A, as we affectionately call it in these parts here. And what do you got for us? What's this card looking like tonight?
Well, a couple that we're just going to talk about, some home and aways, and then into more specifics. The Michigan Wolverines 11-4, their last 15 at home. New coach has to put his style on the mix. We'll see what happens there. I know that in that game, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the marquee matchup. Northeastern is a team that's covered 16 of their 23 games, and American on a 2-9 ATS slide. One totals play that I do like tonight. And again, for those that haven't watched the show, year to date so far, totals have hit 61.1% to the under. Is that an anomaly, or is that because they moved the 3-point line back? We'll see. Only time will really tell. We cannot justify a representation of comparing it to last year, but something to be noted. And here's one that applies. It's a system, Joe, and it applies just to game 2. Teams that won at home game 1 and covered by 21 points. So you were in a comfortable win. You probably played deep into your bench, rested a lot of guys, and then you're at home game 2. Since 2006, those teams have gone 25-7-1 against the spread,
wow,
covering 78%. Two teams fall into that tonight: Arkansas against North Texas and Duquesne against Lamar. So again, to me, does it make sense? Absolutely. You're looking at a team that rock and rolled, perhaps was a little underrated, or has a chip on their shoulder if they don't think they were rated high enough. Win and cover comfortably. Have covered 78% of their game number 2 plays.
Interesting. And, of course, Ralph Michaels here, guys. All the information that you could possibly need in order to make it a profitable college basketball season can be found, and you guys know where. It is wagertalk.com. Make sure you check out Ralph's page there. Under the handicappers section, you can see, of course, he's got some plays up there, but it's Cal Sports, and it's at Cal Sports LV on Twitter. And before we get into, Ralph, a recap of some of the things that we saw last night on an abbreviated slate in college hoops, and there were, of course, weekend, there were some upsets, there was some head scratching going on last night. We want to take a look at some of the movers and shakers, some of the biggest line moves so far that we've seen on this big card here tonight. And I'll start in a game, Ralph, that really jumped out that I thought, well, I think most people thought it was just going to be a blowout, and that's Kentucky taking on Evansville here. And listen, 25-point favorites, 82% of the bets, nearly 91% of the money, obviously taking Kentucky. But the interesting part here, Ralph, is that it appears both the public and maybe the sharps agree on the total going under. This going over, rather. Opened up at 136.5, 137. It's been bet up to 141 already, Ralph, in a couple of hours. So it does appear that at least two sides are pushing the total over with Evansville and Kentucky. And I can tell you from strictly from a dollar standpoint, the biggest bet game on the board right now appears to be Michigan-Creighton, and this is going off at 6:30 here tonight, where it's funny, Creighton, who is getting 5.5 points here, they get 44% of the bets, but that's 73% of the money thus far, Ralph. 56% of the bets towards Michigan. That represents only 27% of the money. Also, the over seems to be getting love. 66% of the tickets, 86% of the money to the over at Michigan and Creighton. So Evansville, Kentucky, Michigan, Creighton. Obviously, a couple of blue bloods in there, Ralph. I guess maybe it shouldn't surprise us that we're seeing that much movement this early on in the day.
Yeah, the movement in the Kentucky line surprises me a little bit. I'd probably lean the other way with the total. Kentucky's defense has been shut down. Creighton, you know what you're getting with Creighton. I mean, you have a 20-win team with McDermott back and, Michigan with a new head coach. So, people are betting on what they know. As you said, you have blue blood programs. They have interest in games they're going to watch. And, they're popular teams. So, it'll be interesting tomorrow. It's still a smaller card compared to Wednesday. So it'll really be interesting when we get to tomorrow's segment to see how much that changes with a plethora of good games on Wednesdays.
Yeah, and I don't know why, too. The other game that keeps running up the board here, Ralph, which I thought was real interesting, and man, what this game could have been. How about Memphis, Oregon tonight, 9 o'clock? And it's the battles of who can't play, really, in what program there with Memphis and Oregon. But a ton of tickets coming in on this, 49% of the bets coming in on Memphis, where Wiseman, I believe, still has that court order allowing him to play here tonight. And Oregon is getting not only a higher percentage of tickets, but also a higher percent of the money, 51% to 67%. This is an interesting game, Ralph, because of, we say neutral site. We've talked about this before. Well, it's in Portland. I don't know how the hell neutral is that. If it's in Portland, it's not really, that's kind of not Memphis. It's not in the it's not really out of the state of Oregon. So I guess it is neutral from that standpoint, but a lot of love and a lot of money coming towards Oregon in this Memphis matchup tonight.
One interesting thing about that game is normally if you're 2 hours away from your home, you're going to have the majority of crowd. But the Memphis fans won't be cheering for Oregon. And in the second game of the doubleheader, you have Oregon State. Those fans won't be rooting for Oregon either. So, yes, it's really very close to Oregon, but it's not going to be that overwhelming home neutral type situation as you have, because those Beaver fans are going to be Memphis Tiger fans tonight.
Oh, big time, big time. And listen, we got some games that we'll go over here coming up, some of our best bets, Ralph, but it was an interesting night last night, to say the least. I know a bunch of guys that were scratching their heads going, huh? Like what, DePaul? Like what? Like what did you notice last night in some of these games?
Well, DePaul winning surprised me. Kent State winning on the road surprised me. I leaned with Towson. That was an overtime game. San Fran, Yale going to the wire. I was on San Fran yesterday. San Fran, got the push or the late win in overtime, a game they really weren't covering that entire time. But we had, 3 or 4 overtime games. I think VMI, Presbyterian went to overtime as well. I took out that Cincinnati is going to be a very good team. Yes, they lost Cronin to UCLA, but the Northern Kentucky head coach is going to have this program in the right direction. And DePaul, DePaul is the type of team I really do like to play on. You're talking about a team that, went into the postseason and I think they played the CBI, in fact, against USF. And they lost 2 out of 3 to USF to get to that tournament. But it's a team that struggled as a very young team. They had success winning 2 of their last 3 regular season games. And then they get into the CBI tournament. They win their first 3 and then lose the 2 out of 3 to USF. That is the type of team you want to look to play on. And they, competitive. Yeah, I mean, Max Struss is going to be a star. They have some people that they're going to give the Big East a run for their money. So I moved up DePaul quite a bit because it wasn't a fluky win. It wasn't as if though, if a team one night shoots 70% from 3-point land, you're going to beat a lot of teams.
Right.
But when you're the better team and you out-physical them and you play defense and you have an all-around game like DePaul did, it's a situation where you just have to move them up. I mean, they're already 4-0. I think they're the only 4-0 team. So not only did you play well, hell, you played a game last Thursday. Last Tuesday. You played a game last Wednesday. You played a game last Friday, and you played a game Monday. You've played 4 games in 6 nights, and you still go on the road to a Big Ten opponent and win by 15. So DePaul clearly gets the check mark for biggest performance of the night. And we have to mention, St. Mary's going down. Winthrop took Fresno to the wire the game before. So You're on the West Coast, you take Fresno to the wire, and then, what happens? You go into St. Mary's as a huge dog. You're expected to get crushed. This was a St. Mary's team that, by the way, beat Wisconsin in overtime in another one of those ever popular settings to go visit for a neutral game, South Dakota. Hey, Joe, what's the state nickname of South Dakota?
Oh, damn, the President's Belt. Oh, man, you just told me. Something Black Mountain, damn it, I can't remember.
Mount Rushmore State.
There you go, I knew the damn thing was there now, and all right, Mount Rushmore State. He's
and for those that didn't watch, Joe and I had to look it up last week because we're talking, why is St. Mary's playing Wisconsin and South Dakota?
What is going on? Yes, there we go.
They're visiting the Black Hills and they're visiting Mount Rushmore.
There it is.
So,
yep.
Now we know. But, Winthrop beat Hartford. Hartford's not a team, but it was on the road. So you beat Hartford on the road on Thursday. You travel across country. You take Fresno State to the wire. You lose by 3. And then you travel to St. Mary's and you win that game. Hats off to Pat Kelsey and his crew at Winthrop, off to a 2-1 start.
Yeah.
They're a team that's there's 353 teams. They're a middle rung team in that 160 to 180 range, or maybe even below that, but not anymore if they play like that.
And I will say this. I do think Iowa, I think it said more about DePaul than it did about Iowa last night, because I do think Iowa, they got some size. They got a couple of McCaffreys. They got Bohannon back. They're going to be good when it's all said and done, Iowa. I think DePaul took a lot of people by surprise, and it's definitely 4 games, like you said, in 7 days. That's a pretty impressive performance for a bunch of, 18-year-olds going around and playing a lot of basketball to start the season. So pretty impressive job from DePaul. And there's a couple of games on tonight, Ralph. We always love to look for our dogs, and we love when the dogs go barking here, like a Winthrop, for instance, last night. What game on the card, or what games on the card, what are you looking at here that the moneyline dog stuck out to you?
Joe, excuse me for 1 second. I just want to jump one back and make one more statement on the Iowa game.
Okay.
And there are times where a coach may not necessarily, yes, you want to win a game, but there's times where coaches may look to be working on things. And that's one thing you have to take a note of. If you look at Iowa's box score last night, DePaul played 3 players 34 or more minutes.
Yeah.
Iowa played no players over 27 minutes. So you have Weiskamp. You have McCaffreys. You have Garza. And yet those starters played 23, 25, 25, and 27 minutes.
Yep.
So he played his bench 12 deep. So he may just be saying, I want some of my guys to get some experience. They were down by 16 after 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's one of those games where you either extend the effort to your starters and perhaps injure them early in the season, or just say, oh, well, they jumped on us. I'm going to clear my bench. Let those guys get experience. So I totally agree. Yes, DePaul, but Iowa's not as bad as that loss when you go back and dive deeper into the box scores.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, guys, it was up to a 24-point lead there towards half. They were basically boat racing Iowa. So it's a great point to dive into the numbers a little bit more. Don't just look at it and be like, oh, God, Iowa's going to suck. No, the Iowa's got some talent. They're going to be there when it's all said and done. And, who's on this card here tonight, Ralph, that you're looking here? We talk about dogs, moneyline dogs. Anything stick out to you on the card here tonight?
Well, let's see. Florida Atlantic's playing. Oh, I tried that one with Miami. That's not.
Stay away.
I am actually going to a blue blood, and I like Missouri. Missouri's getting 5.5 against Xavier. And, I look at the Missouri squad, and they're a team that, my power ratings only had this at 2. So, I'm looking at it and I really think, Xavier Steele's in his second year. You look at Xavier, and as a favorite last year, this is from the Wager Talk College Basketball Guide, which is still up on my homepage. But what do we want? We want a team that doesn't dominate as a favorite like Xavier is. Well, you look at Xavier, and I'm looking at the guide. They were 5-8-1 against the spread as a home favorite in Travis Steele first year as a coach. And more importantly, they were a favorite 16 times last year, and they were only 10-6 straight up as a favorite. So of those 16 games, Xavier actually got upset 6 times. Yes, they're an experienced team with 4 starters back. Yes, they're a top 25 team, but I think the potential is ripe for an upset here early in the year. Joe, do you have anyone that has a little twinkle in your eye that perhaps you might sprinkle something on the line?
You know what it is, Ralph? I'm looking over here, and I got to tell you, we talked about Memphis the first show, didn't we? And then, of course, it was so funny. We talked about Memphis, and then all of a sudden, boom, out of nowhere, the story comes down about how, one of the best players, the number 1 kid in the draft, potentially, Wiseman, is, oh, I'm sorry, he can't play. So then you and I are scrambling. Then we come up 40 minutes later. He gets a court order. We're going, what is going on with Memphis? I think they have an interesting matchup here with Oregon. We talked about Oregon, of course. We had said getting a lot of money, a lot of interest, at least from a ticket standpoint, in this game. But I got to think it's only a 3-point for Oregon, and I've got to tell you, I love Oregon, don't get me wrong, but I think there's something special about this number 1 recruiting class over there and what Memphis has got going on. It seems like they just got a boost from all of this noise that's going around with this kid. They got the court order, the injunction, so he should at least be playing again tonight, although I'm sure as soon as we're done taping this, Ralph, I'm sure we'll hear how he's out again. But I don't know. I kind of like Memphis's chance here to, on the road there, take him down in Portland tonight.
Well, Joe, this isn't going to be the first time this is going to happen, and this is great about a show like this that's unscripted. When we get the best bets, I'm going to butt heads with you. So let's see. I think they can gather who I'm going to go with. But again,
love this.
We'll give both sides and we'll see. But again, it's we don't talk about the best bets. We don't script it, and it's fun to talk about it. That's what betting is. Listen, you're weighing your positives, you're weighing your negatives. People have both sides to bet a game. If you ever find a game where you can't find reasons to bet both teams, for no means don't ever bet that game because you're going to lose it.
So true. It's absolutely so true, Ralph. All right, so good. So at least, listen, we got some dogs on the board here. Is there a situation, Ralph? We always like situational spots too, especially in college hoops as we're getting the season rolling along here. Was there any sort of situational spot you saw here tonight heading into this card?
I do. The Toros of San Diego are off couple losses. And, it's an interesting situation because San Diego is moving up to the Big West next year. So what they did is they started their season playing UC Irvine and Long Beach State, both teams that are in the Big West. And I think when you are the little guy, the San Diego moving into the Big West, Irvine's one of the elite teams in the conference. Long Beach State, I think, is going to be better than what the preseason projection was. Those teams are saying, hey, listen, you're moving into our conference next year. We have an extra effort against you to show you this is our conference. You're moving into here. We're going to dominate. So San Diego is off to an 0-2 start. On the flip side, you have Fresno State, who had to go play a very difficult game against Oregon last Tuesday. Then comes home against Winthrop, same Winthrop we talked about that beat St. Mary's, and they just survived them, winning 77-74. Now, 2 days later, after that Winthrop game, they have to go down to play San Diego. It's going to be a low-scoring bloodbath type game, But San Diego 0-2 off those two Big West opponents. Now at home, Fresno State with that home road game. I do like San Diego tonight.
All right, see, there you go. It helps to understand the situations and what you guys are looking at. And really, knowledge is power. You'll hear Ralph and I talking about this all throughout the season on the show. The more knowledge you have, the smarter sport investing decisions that you guys make. So it's important to understand they're not the end-all, be-all, but there are situations that are going to happen all season long, an opportunity for you guys to be able to profit and make the better decisions on the sides, Ralph. And, you know, a lot of people, they get enamored with marquee matchups, and we mentioned a couple of them tonight that are going to be the focal point with 61 games going on here, Ralph. But what is some of the I know we talked about, we'll get to Memphis, Oregon here, but what is the other game that you're looking at? Is it Michigan Creighton, like we mentioned, getting a whole lot of love from the betting public?
It is. And, you know, we talked about this game and we talked about the money. Whenever you have the new coach, obviously you're not sure what you're going to get, especially a new coach like Juwan Howard, who a younger coach, he hasn't been through the ropes. He wasn't an assistant for years. And now he takes over these young kids and trying to change the team. I will say this, if you used to watch Beeline teams from Michigan, their bigs were not post-up players. Their bigs were outside shooting threes. You know, you always had good big shooting threes, and then they played great defense, and they did that. Well, Juwan Howard's changing that. He likes post-up guys, and Michigan has a couple big guys at center and at power forward. There's a size mismatch in this game. Creighton's tallest player is 6'8". They have one guy injured. They're a very small team. If Juwan Howard can get his Michigan team to play like I think they can and get the ball down low, I think they're going to have a sizable edge. I think they're going to have a huge free throw discrepancy getting to the line, but getting down low. And I like Michigan at home in this game tonight.
All right. Well, that's going to bring us, of course, Ralph, to our best bets here, where I know I had mentioned as an underdog, I might be leaning towards Memphis here a little bit. I will just throw this out before you absolutely destroy it. The Memphis Tigers, 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 against teams with winning records. I do think both of these teams offensively, they can have success. I do think the defense is going to be interesting, what happens here. And I know the hometown, or at least the home state, the home city, it being in Portland, kind of a neutral site, but I lean the specialness that they've got going on there, rallying behind their teammate, who they probably won't have much longer when the NCAA gets through with the courts. So how do you like Oregon? Tell me where you're coming with Dana Altman and company.
Well, just a note on what you said, Joe. If something happens and Weissman's not eligible, that very well may knock Memphis off being a postseason team this year. So you may really see a team slide. So pay attention. That's basically what they told Penny Hardaway. It's your choice if you want to play him. But if we find him ineligible, it could hurt your postseason chances for this year. So you may have a team that's off to a 5-0, 6-0 start, playing great. All of a sudden, not only do you lose your best player, but then you lose eligibility in the postseason. Very few teams, I think, will be racked positively with that. But, as I said, we are going to butt heads, and no disagreement that Weissman's probably going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. No disagreement that Penny Hardaway wanted him to play at home to get excitement. They had a sold-out crowd. When you're at home and you finally sell your tickets, Memphis used to be a powerhouse back, and now you finally are selling tickets again. You want to make sure you give that crowd something to play against. Well, Memphis's 2 games were runovers. That's because they played South Carolina State, and that's because they played Illinois Chicago. Another thing that clearly benefited Memphis in those 2 games is tempo. Illinois Chicago is one of the fastest tempo teams in the country, so Memphis wanted to play fast, and you have a crappy fast team to play against. Another perfect storm that happened with them. Well, everyone talks about Memphis's recruiting class. It was number 1 in the country. Oregon was number 3. Oregon has multiple 5-stars in this recruiting class. Dana Altman, an incredible job. They have a transfer from New Mexico who's starting. They have UNLV's best player, Shakur Justin, who's starting. Plus the number 3 recruiting class on top of those transfers that were here last year and sat out. You have a team that's better than Memphis to start of the year. You have a slight home neutral edge. You have the factor that everyone's talking about Memphis recruits. No one's talking about your recruits. You have Dana Altman, who knows how to play defense and plays a much slower pace, which I think will frustrate Memphis, especially playing their first road game. Hence, I do have a best bet on the show on the Oregon Ducks.
Love it. See, this is what it's all about. And now now I might very well just go hedge out of my play. So thanks very much for that, Ralph. I do have one as well, though. I felt much more strongly about. And, of course, that is anytime you get the WAC meeting Conference USA, it should be interesting. And I know many of you are probably watching this and going, huh? Yeah, well, it's not often you can get New Mexico State versus UTEP and get a game that you actually like. It's interesting because both of these teams, it's in El Paso, in fact. UTEP knocked off New Mexico Highlands. I think that was 93-70 at home in the season opener. That was last Tuesday. And the Aggies, they lead this all-time series, guys, 74-70. These guys have played each other a lot over the years, and quite honestly, the things that scare me is both of these teams scored 90 points in their season openers, Ralph, but UTEP gave up 70 in that game, which is a bit because they were that team was way overmatched in that game there, and they still managed to give up 70 points. But the thing that did it to me is UTEP has managed to they have 9 straight times they have lost to New Mexico State in this matchup. I don't see how they don't make it 10 in a row, to be completely honest with you. I just UTEP scares me with defensively. I think New Mexico, they've kind of had their number over the years. I think they have the experience from the team that almost beat Auburn in the tournament last season. You beat a team up 9 straight times coming in this early in the season. I don't mind laying the points at all there at 3 and saying, you know what, they'll make it 10 in a row here, Ralph.
You know, for those that don't know, we talk about local rivalries. That I-10 rivalry, they play each other twice, going back at least the last 10 years. Yes. They have a home and home every year. So, you know, you want to talk about a rivalry that not only plays once a year, but plays twice a year. That just adds another level to that rivalry, facing each other on a home and home. Yep. So, you know, I'm a WAC fan. I'm a Chris Jans fan back from the Ohio State days. You know, their defensive prowess last year was incredible. You know, they were a team that, if you remember, you know, they won their WAC. They had 4 or 5 losses to the year. Let's see, their losses were to St. Mary's. Yeah. Lost to Kansas by 3. Yep. They lost to Drake by 3. They lost to Cal Baptist by 6. And then, what happened in the tournament? They lost to Auburn by 1. So New Mexico State, a real team, but since the WAC normally wasn't lined the last few years, people just don't have that same opinion of them because they're not used to thinking about them when they're making their bets. Yep, and also UTEP has seen the under hit 5-1 in their last 6 non-conference games, so keep an eye on the total in this matchup as well. But all in all, Ralph, it's going to be one hell of a card tonight. 61 games on tap, and even for the rest of the week, right? I mean, the fun is just getting started. Oh, absolutely. I mean, tomorrow there's a couple top 20 games. You know, looking at Wednesday's card, I can tell you, we'll probably do 3 marquee matchups with Purdue, Marquette, Villanova, Ohio State, and LSU and Wade returning to Virginia Commonwealth. So we'll talk about those 3. A great card on Wednesday. Yep, it's going to be a lot of fun. And, of course, want to invite you guys to head over to WagerTalk.com. Head over to WagerTalk.com right now. Ralph's page. Plays are up there. Packages available. There's something for everybody at WagerTalk.com. It's under the Cal Sports page. Of course, don't forget, guys, too, at Cal Sports LV on Twitter is definitely a place you're going to want to go and tail Ralph. And do us a favor, if you could, go ahead, like these videos, hit the thumbs up, hit that little
that little bell in the corner here on YouTube for you folks here on Wager Talk TV. That'll notify you every time we post something here. So never miss a college basketball show. We'll be doing these every day during the week, guys, throughout the season, trying to give you as much information as possible to make it a profitable college basketball season. So, Ralph, here we go again. Dare I say Memphis? I'm only kidding. Oregon, Memphis going to be fun. Michigan is going to be fun. And even Kentucky, Evansville. And you mentioned, though, a lot of that money pushing to the over in this game. It keeps pushing that number up. But I'm with you. I kind of think there's going to be a lot of defense in some of these games tonight.
Yeah, well, we know the elite coaches try to play defense. Everyone knows their offense is going to work by the end of the season.
Yep.
Everyone's not sure their defense is going to work, and that's what they're working on now. So the teams that have an early defense, I mean, we've seen Virginia shut down Syracuse and then just shut down. I mean, the teams that can play defense early in the year, it's a whole nother ball game. They have a big edge.
Yeah, defense travels because it's all effort. That's for sure. He is Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. I'm Joe Raineri, SportsMemo.com. Guys, good luck on the card today, and come back and join us again tomorrow for the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. Good luck to you guys.